You do have the ability to achieve your dreams and desires. You come from infinite intelligence. You have that God DNA inside you to be able to create, to be able to do, to be able to accomplish and perform miracles in your life. And so you do have the ability to achieve your dreams and desires.
Jeff Griffin, welcome to Quick Before You Forget.
Thank you for having me, Ty. I am so excited to have this conversation. I'm so excited to be edified from you and your questions and your comments. And I'm excited to maybe, shine a little light and love with your audience today.
I am so grateful you're here. So, listen, the first few guests I'm having on the show as a thank you, as a gratitude moment to say thank you for believing in me and for helping me go after my big crazy dreams. So you guys don't even know what you have to look forward to with Jeff today. So I just need to tell you, buckle up because some people teach possibility, others become proof of it. Jeff Griffin, known to friends as Griff, was paralyzed in college, rebuilt his life, became a Paralympic medalist, and has spent the past two decades helping people move past doubt and into action. This one's about remembering what's still inside you and moving forward with that. Jeff, thank you for being here today. I really appreciate it. And I'm wondering, as you've done and lived this life, the most important tool I think we all have is our story, especially in moments of strength and struggle and how they lead to finding our purpose through intentional and personal growth. Let's go way back. What is a childhood memory that shaped who you are today?
I would have to say, my mother. If I were to write a biography, it'd be called, my mother's son. My mom grew up. She was born in between the Great Depression and World War II. She didn't see a balloon, like, yes, that little balloon that you hold and as a little kid till she was 13 years old because of the rationings. And she grew up on a farm and she learned her life lessons knee deep in cow poop as she's shoveling the cow manure to get it to ready to spread onto the fields to where the crops will grow. And a specific experience that really shaped my life for me was I was probably 10 years old and I went into my mom's office and she was working on the computer. And I was probably going in there to complain that I don't want to do the chores or, I was going to say, hey, I'm done with the work that I'm really not done with. And I go in there and before I could even say anything, top left corner of her computer screen was a little sticky note. And I remember pausing, stopping, and looking at that sticky note and reading what it said on there. And my mom wrote to remind herself that challenges are like manure. They sure do stink, but they certainly help things to grow. And so that moment right there, I'm like, okay, I'm like, that makes sense, but I want to make it even more simple for me, for a 10-year-old kid. And so I'm like, okay, I get this. Take your crap and turn it into a crop. And so ever since that that moment, it's like I'm like, okay, how can I look at things as an opportunity instead of a challenge, and or how do I take my mess and turn it into my message? And just that simple little tool and technique of being able to flip the switch and reframe things. But yeah, my mother had a huge impact on who I am today. And if I were to write a biography, it would be titled My Mother's Son.
That's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that story. So, obviously, you at 10 years old hadn't yet really faced the real kind of challenges, right? So, the real challenges were not that far off. Talk us through how you were able to put that mindset shift into action when things got really challenging a few years later.
Yeah. And so, I mean, people always ask me, like, Griff, have you always been this optimistic? Griff, have you always been this, hopeful? Griff, have you always been this positive? And the answer is no, no. And so, I've had my moments, I've had my times and whatnot, and my book is kind of called I'm possible, desire, dream, do. I think those three D's are the foundation of every solution and every challenge that we're faced with. And if we understand what a desire is and how to take a look at the anatomy of a dream and how to dream weave, and then actually go and do the things that are actually going to give us some results, that lies at the foundation of everything. And another one of my battle cries, as I call them, because we all need battle cries, is just don't quit. Capital DO, capital IT. And so, you can see the do it inside the just, the don't quit. And so people are like, so I go around and I teach people how to like tap into that and how to develop a P squared mindset to where you don't quit, to where you do it, even in those times of difficulty. And but what's interesting here, Ty, is I went from learning this valuable lesson from my mother on taking your crap and turning it into a crop, and learning how to be resilient um, in those moments. But knowing what to do and doing what we know are two different things.
Amen.
And so as a 10-year-old kid, I grasped the concept, but now I'm going to have to implement it and close that gap. And so in that journey of my life, I've had some amazing moments, and I've had some really, really low and ugly moments. And one thing that really, really galvanized and shaped me who I was, and I think prepared me for the accident that changed my life forever, was an event that took place my freshman year in college. My dream was to play football in college. That was the song that sang inside my soul. I'm like, yes, this is what I want to do. I want to play on the big stage. I want to play for Lavelle Edwards at BYU. I grew up in Cache Valley, where they breed them to hate them. And but I was a receiver, and I loved football. That was the song that sang inside my soul. And I played in the springtime, I played in the summertime, I played in the wintertime. And on Sundays when I couldn't play it outside, I'd go down in the basement and play it in my mind. And I just dream about making catch after catch after catch from the next All-American quarterback at BYU. Um, and I'd been told my whole life all the reasons why I couldn't. Like, Griff, you can't play football, you're too short. You can't play football in college, you're too slow. You can't play football in college, you're too white. I'm like, okay, I get it. Too short, too slow, too white. I'm like, it's all stacked up against me. But I'm like, I don't care. I just knew I had a song inside my soul, and I wanted to chase it down. I wanted to orchestrate and conduct that song that sang inside my soul. And fortunately for me, I didn't realize it at this younger age that most people base our possibilities on their limitations.
Oof. Say that again. Most people base our possibilities on their
Their
expectations, their
limitations.
limitations.
On their
Exactly.
limitations. And so
Yes.
also we do it ourselves, right? We base other people's possibilities on our limitations, and we're like, yeah, you really can't do that. You can't. Joey maybe, Jennifer maybe, and I don't know if you experienced this before, where you've experienced it, like, I can't do this. I know that Ty can do it. I know that Tommy can do it, but I don't know if I can do it. And so for me, as a little kid, I'm like, I didn't understand that. And I continued to chase down my dream. And one day after practice, I came home, and there was a letter on the table from the school that I wanted to go to. And just to make sure I wasn't dreaming, I went and touched the embossed helmet that was on the envelope. And because I'd heard that word, I can't, you can't, so many times. In fact, I even told myself that occasionally, but I'm like, there's that song, there's that song. And I continue to chase that song and can chase down that dream. And this word I can't. I'm just going to just throw it out there. Eliminate it from your vocabulary. Just eliminate it from your vocabulary. It is poisonous, it's debilitating, and it's limiting. And as soon as you tell yourself you can't, your mind accepts the fact that you can't come up with a solution. And so for every minute you doubt it's possible, you give up 60 seconds in finding the solution. And that word I can't is one of the biggest contributing factors to why we don't get to accomplish our dreams. And so going back to this moment, here's this envelope. I wasn't sure if I was dreaming or not. I touched the embossed helmet. I opened up the envelope. I pulled out the letter, and there was a letter addressed from the legendary Hall of Fame coach, Lavelle Edwards, inviting me, the short, slow white guy, to go play at his on his team. And so here I'm like, and so I thought he was giving this to everybody. I'm like, he must be giving this to everybody because I've heard that word. You can't, Griff. You can't do that. And so I took it to practice. I'm like, hey guys, did you guys get this letter as well? And they thought I was like rubbing it in their face, like, hey, look what I got. I'm like, you guys suck, but look at me. I've got a letter. So they tried to take my head off in practice that day. But long story short, Ty, and this is what I'm getting at, this idea of knowing what to do and doing what you know. There's a gap. And I showed up on campus my freshman year, and I was excited and stoked, and having a little bit of trepidation as well. But what happened quickly was catches that I typically caught, I dropped. Routes I ran with Christmas, I stumbled and fell. Teammates that once encouraged me were now discouraging me because they were hoping to get a spot on the team as well. And the pressure was too much, or at least I thought it was too much for me. And I quit. And to make matters worse, when I called my parents up, I told them that I was cut. I was cut from the team. I was so embarrassed that I quit
You
that I lied to
fibbed.
them. What's that?
You fibbed to your parents.
Call it a fib, call it whatever, a white lie, whatever it is. It was a lie. I told because I was so
So
embarrassed.
why? Why do you, so your mom was like your number one fan. So
Yeah.
why did you feel like you had to lie to her? What made you lie?
Oh, she tried. She helped out so much, and she was like my agent. She was like my biggest cheerleader. She encouraged me to do these things. She'd bring me articles about the Karl Malone, the great all-star player for the Utah Jazz, and saying how he worked out during the off season, and so yeah, I was just that moment of weakness, where first of all that moment of weakness where I went into the coach's office and quit. The second moment of weakness was getting on to, the call with my parents and letting them know that, hey, listen, I won't be playing football this year because I quit. I was cut. I was cut from the team. But here's what I've learned. That moment right there, and to think about it to this day embarrasses me. It really does. But at the same time, it was a lesson of a lifetime that kind of galvanized and helped prepare me for the moment that was coming in the future. And the lesson that I learned is when our desires and dreams do not match up, we allow that demon of complacency, doubt, and fear to creep in to our mind. And eventually what's going to happen is we're going to quit. We're going to quit on our dreams. We're going to quit on our friends. We're going to quit on our families. And some people quit on themselves and quit on life. They take their lives. And so one thing that I've learned here, Ty, is when are we going to stop lying? When are we going to stop lying to ourselves? When are we going to stop lying to our friends and families, and start living and start realizing that, you know what, I do need a little bit of help. I do need to maybe change and to shift a few things in my life. And there's tools and techniques. And so fortunately for me, the coach gave me a way out. He's like, Griff, I know you're going to go serve a 2-year mission. When you come back and you want to play, give it another shot. And I'm like, oh, okay. So for 2 years, I went and developed this P squared mindset. I developed, um, I closed the gap for me on knowing what to do and doing what I know. And I learned so many valuable lessons during those 2 years. And I developed what I call the P squared mindset. I call it the possibility principle. But that right there prepared me to come back after those 2 years. I made the team. I got to experience 2 plays, and I got to experience what it would be like to be on the first team, to be in the huddle and on the field, not just on the sidelines, because as successful leaders and leaders of success, we've got to get people not just to the stadiums and to the stands. We got to get them out of the stadium and out of their seats and onto the sideline to put a jersey on their back so that they can go and play in the game called life. Because once you play this game full out, you turn your gray into 4K.
Well, that's beautiful. And thank you for sharing that whole story. I have so much to unpack from what you said. So, one of the things that it just sounds it's like says easy, does hard, is working through that gap and what it means when people say you can't. So, you talked about how you worked through it, but I want to know, like, how would you advise people who hear that you can't, you can't, you can't, and it starts, you and I both know that it starts to rewire the way that you're thinking. So how do you work through that at like a very high level, one thing that you can do to step in the right direction against that you can't mindset?
100% you can't. And what I do is I have a little I call it the battle cry, my battle cry bracelet. And I've got four battle cries that I have personally love and use. This one right here is I'm possible. Because how do you take the impossible and turn it into the possible without changing your circumstances? Because so many of us want to just blame our circumstances, blame our upbringing, blame the color of our skin, blame where we went to school or didn't go to school, whatever it is. And so, we all come with this programming. I call it poor programming. Um, and and so, sometimes I have to remind myself by reaching down and snapping myself out of that mindset. And we all and so again, so that's what I use
Yeah, you
to
guys can't see it if you're listening, but so I'll explain what he's doing. He's got his bracelet, which is pink, by the way, and I love that. And it says I'm possible on it. So he's literally snapping it to snap himself out of it physically and mentally at the same time, which is very powerful and definitely something that people can learn from in terms of the physical and the mental working together for good, to change things. So I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I do want to know more about this P squared thing. So I know about it, but I know that the listeners and viewers would love to know more about that too. Can you walk us through what that is and how you can use it in your life?
Yeah, 100%. And so again, the battle cry bracelet kind of like gets you realigned. It's like it snaps you out of this. And so one thing that we need to realize is that we can flip the switch. We can change our thinking. I think Wayne Dyer said that when you begin to change the way you think, the things that you think about begin to change. I probably butchered it. Sorry, Wayne. Love your stuff, but anyways, you get the idea there. And so it's like, okay, first of all, we have to just admit that we have the ability to flip the switch. And I'm gonna give you an example, because how many of you guys have been, arguing with a loved one, somebody that you love or whatnot? You're going at it, you're arguing. All of a sudden, the phone rings, and you have to pick it up. It's somebody you got to talk to. You look at the phone, you're just going at it hard, and all of a sudden you click that button, click, hello. Yep. Uh-huh. Yeah, absolutely. Everything. Yeah, everything's okay. Everything's great. Yeah, yeah, we're doing great. It's on click, and you're just going back at it again. So we have this ability to flip the switch. We all have done it before. And so, when your lights go out in your house because from the breaker, we don't get on the ground and kick our feet and throw a tantrum because the lights went out. No, we get up, we go find the breaker box, we open it up and we find the fuse that has broken, and we just flip it, and the lights come back on. No big deal. And so that's what the P squared mindset is. It's like, okay, how do we flip the switch and turn the lights back on? How can we start to consistently and persistently do those things that are going to change that poor programming? Or I think as Zig Ziglar says, the stinking thinking.
Stinking thinking. Well, I think it's a little easier when you have that song that's saying inside your soul, which is what you kept talking about when you were telling the story before. Can you walk us through what that sounds like? Is there an actual song? How does that come to life for people? Because I personally, and you know this, I have a soundtrack for my life at all times. I love music. Music brings my soul alive. Music helps you process things that words can't. So when you're speaking about the song inside your soul, that speaks my language. So talk to me more about that and how that sounds and how that kept you going when you were going after everything and being told repeatedly over and over again that you couldn't or that you can't.
Yeah, I love that. And so for me, music is the bridge. It translates your feelings into words, and it gives you imagery that you can't quite get to, and so that's why I use this, this phrase, you got to start listening to the song that sings inside your soul, because we all have that song that needs to be heard by the world. But for whatever reason, we've turned it off, we've shut it down, we've stopped listening because of all the boo birds and everyone else out there that's saying, listen, you can't do this, you can't do that. It's impossible. It's impossible to do. And so, we have the outside world telling us that we can't. We even have the inside world, because we listen to the outside world telling us that we can't. And so we've stopped dreaming. We've stopped listening to that song. And with music, you've got that conductor, with the 130 piece orchestra. I don't even know how much is in an orchestra, but can you imagine be that conductor that gets to, like, tell the trumpets to quiet down a little bit, and the strings to bring it up a little bit more, and the guy who does the triangle ding is like, you know what, you got to get that right. You just got to hit it perfect. And so most people don't know what they want, but the majority of us know what we don't want. And there's that problem, because where our focus goes, our energy flows.
Mm.
And we continue to get the same thing that we don't want. And so we have to understand how to conduct and orchestrate that song. And I call it dream weaving. How do you open up the floodgates of imagination and dream new dreams? How do you dream again? How do you dream in color? How do you slow down enough to weave that tapestry of dreams that's going to hang on somebody else's social media wall? And we're always told you got to know your dream, you got to know your why, but no one teaches you how to do that. And so part of this process, that I've gone through, I call it dream weaving, to where that's the first step that we need to understand is, what is it that I want? What's that song that sings inside my soul? Where's the direction that I need to go? And where's the destination I'm going to end up? And most of us, don't take the time, or we don't know how to do it. We're told we need to do it, but it's just like, what do you want? What do you want? I don't know if you've seen the movie, The Notebook. What do you want? What do you want? What do you? I don't know. And so most of us know what we don't want on a visceral level. And so part of dream weaving is we take a look at what you don't want just for a moment, and then we flip it on its head to identify, okay, then what is it that you do want? Because if this is what you don't want on a visceral experience, then that's what it means that you want on a visceral experience, on a subconscious level. And so that's the technique we use. And then of course you have to rip up and tear up that list of things that you don't want, because you've just transpose them onto another piece of paper, and it's crystal clear. By the time we're done working with each other, that first 90 minutes to 2 hours, we like go on a subconscious level, and it's like we touched the nerves, we touch what it is that lights you up, and then you just have this list. It's like, okay, now what do I want to do? Okay, just pick one, pick another, pick another, pick the one that excites you the most. And basically what we've done here with dream weaving is we've given you 100 different options and 100 different songs to choose from. And the world needs to hear your song. Let the music out. We need the world needs to hear your song. And so that's what we get to do.
Well, that was a beautiful description, and I hope that people really lean in and take that to heart, because there's so much power in sharing your story. And that's, one of the things that I really want to lean into here on Quick Before You Forget is the power of story, and helping people feel seen in other people's stories. So thank you for that. I want to pivot a little bit, and it's kind of a two-part question, because you said you weren't always an optimistic guy, and then now you are. And sometime between there, you had the accident that changed your life. Can we talk through that and how that has impacted your mindset for the better? Because I think that that is super powerful for people to hear.
Yeah, because sometimes I'm too much for people. My wife once told me, she's like, Jeff, can you bring it down? I made the mistake and said, can you bring it up?
Oh
Uh,
no.
yeah, not the wisest thing to say at the moment, but I'm like, hey, listen, why not? If you can say it, why can't I say it? Apparently there's some things that I can't say, but she can. But yeah, and so I do have low moments. I do have bad days, but there was a moment that happened here, and just for your listeners, I found myself next to an unpainted barn in the fields of Napoleon Dynamite country there in Preston, Idaho. It was just north of where I grew up. It was in between seasons. I had just finished my first year of college after my 2-year mission. And I'm like, okay, I need enough money to go back and focus on football. I need enough money to buy a bullet bike because every time I saw a guy on a bullet bike, there was a lady on back. And it was like, Griff, you really don't want a bullet bike. You just want the ladies. You're like, you're right. You're right. I just want the ladies. Um, but there I was next to an unpainted barn, broken, bruised, and battered. I had just fallen 40 feet from some scaffolding and a ladder that I had set up to paint that barn. That's what I was doing for to make some money. And I fell 40 feet, stuck the landing perfect. If I was a gymnast, I wasn't. My legs came up, my back came down, my elbow vertebrae exploded inside me, leaving me paralyzed from the waist down. And so my identity of being able to jump higher, run faster, and catch better was just stripped from me immediately. It was like in an instant, in a moment, my life turned upside down. And understand, right? Like here I am chasing my dreams. I show up freshman year. I quit. I go away for 2 years, learn to develop this P square mindset, come back, and I get to experience and taste the sweetness of success and what it would be like to be on the first team and not the scrub team. And okay, here I am building my business for 3 month period of time. Business is booming. I've got this project. I'm like, okay, this is my last project before I go back to school. And in an instant, I fell 40 feet and broke my back. And so my identity was wrapped up in my physicality. And so I went into a tailspin and I entered that sauna of self-pity. And I'm walling around, in that syrupy, sticky sauna of self-pity. And I'm having this biggest pity party. And all I could do is focus on all the things that I couldn't do. I couldn't even roll over. I had to have nurses come and roll me over every 2 hours so I wouldn't get pressure sores. I couldn't even put on my pants without any help. It took me an hour just to get dressed in the morning with the help of other people. It took me a half an hour to just get out of my bed into my chair with the aid of two nurses. I had to have help using the restroom. How humiliating is that? And so I'm like, okay, life is over. Life is over. And as a 22-year-old, I'll just say it, 22-year-old virgin, somebody who has not had any sexual relationships, that was one of the hardest things for me to deal with as well, because they're like, Griff, you're never gonna walk, you're never gonna stand, you're never gonna move your legs again. I'm like, okay. And then like, you're never gonna have kids because it's the first function to go, it's the last to come back. And I'm like, what? I'm like, that's taken away as well. And so you can imagine like how like ominous life was for me. And I was they stopped feeding me in bed. So I had to go to the cafeteria to eat. So it took me forever just to get out to there, and I was rolling down the sterile halls of the hospital, just having the worst pity party and feeling sorry for myself, forgetting about that P square mindset, forgetting about the optimism that I learned, forgetting about the mindset that I had developed to not quit and to keep on going, to just do it because I'm possible. And I didn't have my battle cry bracelet at the time, but there was a moment that snapped me out of it better than anything else could have ever happened. And so I got my food. I went to the corner of the cafeteria because you know how you want to be left alone when things are crappy. Worst time to be left alone, but I'm like, I want to be left alone. Go to the corner of the cafeteria, plop my tray down, and I'm flavoring my food with my tears. And all of a sudden, this tray just plops in front of me. And I look at this person. I'm about to tell him to go take a hike with some words that I'm not going to repeat on this. And he asked a question that set me free from my prison. Now, here's the irony, Ty. The person sitting across from me was a prisoner at the local prison. He was lifting weights, had an aneurysm, paralyzed from the right side of his body. And so he was doing therapy at the hospital. And so here's this prisoner sitting in front of me, a person who we as society deems as unvaluable. Just doesn't have anything to give to to the community and to society. And he looks at me, and I'm about to tell him to go take a hike when he asked the question that changed my life forever, that set me free from my prison. He's like, Griff. And he didn't say Griff. He's like, why are you hiding, dude? And I'm like, what? He's like, why are you hiding, dude? And in his slurred speech, I understood the question that he was asking me. And the question that he was asking me was, why are you crying, dude? And that was like a two by four just being cracked across the side of my head, snapped me out of that. And instantly I asked myself, why am I crying? And things that I didn't see previous, I began to see. Where I once focused on the things that I couldn't do, I started to focus on the things that I could do. And I didn't even realize that I had passed two individuals on the table that were paralyzed from the neck down. One was paralyzed from the neck down. He had a halo screw to his skull. He couldn't even feed himself. He couldn't even move. And so here he is having somebody feed himself. And and I am able to feed myself. I'm like, I can do this. I can feed myself and I can give hugs. This person can't even do that. The next person next to him was paralyzed from the waist, from the neck down as well. Had some movement in his arms, so they taped a fork in a, to his thumb and finger, and he's struggling just to get the fork to his mouth. And by the time he gets the fork to his mouth, the morsels had fallen off, and he was just struggling. And I'm like, you know what? I'm able to feed myself. And instantly and immediately, I'm like, okay, this switch flipped. And I started to focus on what I could do instead of what I couldn't do. And that was been the difference. That has been all the difference, is just being able to focus on what I can do instead of what I can't do. And every one of us who's still with us, every one of us, there's no excuse. Every one of us has the ability to work on the greatest tool that we have in between our ears. And unfortunately, most of us don't do the heavy lifting that's required with slowing down, being still, and thinking about what is it that I need to give to the world? What is it that the world needs from me? What is that song that sings inside my soul that the world needs to hear? There's 8 billion people. Not everyone likes the same music, and that's okay. But everyone, there's somebody that's going to need to hear your music, to hear your song, to see your dream, to see that light in your eyes, and that will spark something inside them that will turn their gray into 4K.
Jeff, you said so many powerful things there, and something that I heard in your words was Trent Shelton, who one of his quotes is, "Your perspective is either your power or your prison," and that's so true. And then there's the connection side of everything there, because you found your door to working through a hard thing with the help of a friend that sat down and asked you a question. And isn't that just very, it's powerful, because we never know, you needed his song that day. You needed him to smack you in the face and say, "Why are you crying, dude?" So I just think there's so much there, but the two things that resonate so much for me is the shift in your perspective and how much that matters. But then how much it matters to be the guy who sat and asked you that question for other people, and to be the light for other people, because you never know. I mean, obviously, you were in a situation where everybody knew what was going on and everybody was in various states of challenge, and somebody reached out, and that's just such a beautiful thing. So I just needed to acknowledge that, and work through that a little bit out loud, because that's everything. The connections in this world, we're so distracted by technology and by the world is on fire and heavy, and we have the gift of connection to so many people that we tend to kind of get so focused on everything else and forget that the people around us are who can honestly bring us out of the darkness and into the light. So thank you for sharing that story, with all the heart and soul that you did. I want to ask you, what do you want people to remember about this season of your life? That, like, what do you want them to remember before this moment passes?
Yeah, so some work that I do with individuals because clarity, dream weaving. You got to understand what your vision is. And a lot of people are like, well, how do I do that? Well, one way is to focus on what you don't want. Another way is this may sound morbid, is to write out your obituary. I put people in that rocking chair, 80 years old. They're in that rocking chair. They're contemplating their life and like, okay, what will people remember me by? What will people say about who I am and what I did? And so, one way is to write your obituary. Like write your obituary. I know it's so difficult to get into the future because if we can go as far into the future as we possibly can, and we can see our greatness and we can see our potential and our power, then okay, it's like okay, right now, my present circumstances, not a big deal. And I didn't get to that conclusion until I was just trying to write down. I've identified some of my roles as an individual. A lot of us wear a lot of hats, and and sometimes we get so thin and so pulled from different directions that we're useless in every area. And so I've identified five roles, five areas in my life that I want to focus on. And the first one is myself. And I'm like, okay, what do I want? What do I want for myself? And then I'm like, okay, my role as a family, friends, and neighbors. What I want my neighbors and friends to remember me as, and what's the vision for them. Another one is husband. Like, what kind of a husband do I want to be? That's a major role for me. Another one is my business. I'm like, okay, what do I want for my business, and what do I want? How do I want to impact the world, through my business? And the last one is humanitarian, because I believe that every great man and woman of history is a man of service. And so I'm like, how can I serve? How can I serve others? And so I've just gone through those five areas, those five roles in my life, and gotten really crystal clear on what it is, what's my dream, what's my vision, what's my Everest, what is it, what are my dreams and desires in this area? And so, the question that you ask is, how do I want to be remembered? Well, I want my friends and neighbors to remember me as a man that lightened their loads, lifted their spirits, and loved them, because I have learned for myself that I'm a God-fearing, powerful, authentic, lovable, and playful man. And through my light and love, I inspire others to shine. That's the essence. It's all boiled down to those simple phrases there. And so if I don't leave this podcast lightening your load or lightening the loads of your listeners, and you know giving them this power and inspiration, then I failed. And so that's my intention. That's what I intend to do everywhere I go and everything I do. Is I'm like, how can I lift your spirits? How can I lighten your loads? And how can I love you? And so anyway, that's how I want to be remembered.
Well, as a friend now for about a year, I can say that every single interaction that I've had, you've checked all three of those boxes. So I know and have all the faith in my soul that the listeners and viewers will feel it too. So thank you for that. I really truly appreciate it. And I could talk to you for hours, but we don't have hours. So I want to wrap with I'm trying to do these five questions with each guest and have them be a little bit more quick hitting, like,
Okay.
one or two sentences, the first thing that kind of comes to your head. So,
Rapid fire.
one small, ordinary habit that quietly changed your life.
Daily dime.
Talk
Do the
more.
daily dime all the time.
Tell me a little more about it because I'm familiar. I know I said one sentence, but I need everybody else to know more about that.
Yeah, the Daily Dime. So I kind of got the idea from Napoleon Hill, his book Think and Grow Rich. He has this the faith formula, as he calls it in his book, and I think it's step number three, where he talks about devoting 10 minutes a day to demanding of yourself the development of autosuggestion or self-suggestion. And I'm like, 10 minutes. I'm like, I can't sit still for 10 minutes. 10 minutes is way too long. All these excuses. I'm like, 10 minutes. Whew, I can't do 10 minutes. But one thing that I love is finding the simplicity on the far side of complexity. To make this simple, I'm like, what I can do is I can spend 5 minutes in the morning and I can spend 5 minutes at night. And that's been all the difference. Just 5 minutes. Sometimes those 5 minutes turn into 15 minutes and sometimes 30 minutes or whatever it is. And I'm really starting to enjoy the stillness. I'm really starting to enjoy the silence because I know that the silence can be deafening for most. But, in the Bible, it says, in Psalms 46:10, be still and know that I am.
Amen. Thank you for that. If someone is listening right now that's rebuilding their life or a situation from the ground up, what is the first thing and most important thing that you want them to hear?
You do have the ability to achieve your dreams and desires. You come from infinite intelligence. You have that God DNA inside you to be able to create, to be able to do, to be able to accomplish and perform miracles in your life. And so you do have the ability to achieve your dreams and desires. And that P squared principle, that possibility principle is at the footings of the foundation. We've talked about the 3Ds, but that possibility principle is the footings. And so we can put a link in the description. You guys can go and get it. And if you put in P2 in the shop, gift for those who are still with us.
Thank you. I really appreciate that, Jeff, and they will too. What would you tell your past self now that your present self understands?
You are so much more than you think. Stop beating up on yourself and know the power that you have within.
Thank you. What is your song of survival when things get really hard? What song does Jeff Griffin put on Spotify or Apple or the CD player or whatever you listen with?
This may sound silly and stupid, but Cole Wilkinson, the voice of Les Mis and Don Quixote and Man of La Mancha, back in the 80s, just I love listening to him. Um, to Dream, The Impossible Dream is one of my favorite songs. Just to turn it up and just drive down the road or listening to it in my room. But to hear him specifically sing that song, I just love it. To Dream, The Impossible Dream.
Well, that makes sense and is very on brand because we believe that impossible is just a big word thrown around by small people. So we believe that I am possible, you are possible, we are possible, I'm possible. Thank you, Jeff. And finally, the one thing that you hope you never forget as you keep becoming.
It's a great question. I would say remember is the most important word in the English dictionary because we forget. We forget where we came from. We forget who we are, and we forget where we're going. And so for me, the thing that I never want to forget and I always want to remember is that the great I am is all the difference. And if you just add an apostrophe in the word impossible, it becomes I'm possible. And the great I am is who gives me all the power and potential to accomplish my dreams and desires.
Jeff Griffin, thank you for pouring into me, for pouring into the listeners and viewers, for your generous offer with the P squared. I am so grateful for your time today. I want to ask if there's anything else that you want to share that I didn't ask you, and then we'll wrap.
Just that sometimes we try to consume our dreams and desires and everything that we hear all in one bite. Confucius says that man cannot consume a whole elephant in one bite. I'm like, who eats elephants? And so I'm like, you can't consume a whole cow in one bite. And many of us have probably consumed two or three cows over our lifetime. And this reminder. And today, 30 years later, I can get up out of my chair and I can walk across the stage with swagger. I've climbed a mountain, 9,711 feet. I've accomplished all these things that I was told that it's impossible to do. I'm going to run and not be weary. I'm going to walk and not faint. I'm going to have a full recovery in a reasonable amount of time. It's been 30 years and I'm not there yet. But this is what I've learned, that inch by inch is a cinch, yard by yard is hard. So do every mile with a smile. And so instead of trying to consume everything at once and trying to get to our destination in one leap, to enjoy the journey and to just take that one step after the next step after the next step. And sometimes that first step is, I need to know what I want. I need to spend some time and do some dream weaving. Like, you know what? My desires are conflicting at times. There's times where I'm like, I want to be great. I want to be, amazing. I want to be the top of, the list. I want to be bigger, faster, stronger. And you wake up the next day and you're like, maybe tomorrow. And it's like, okay, well, our desires are conflicting. So how do I dissect what a desire is? And how do I match it up with my dreams? Because once you match up a definite, deliberate desire with your dreams, a crystal clear dream, boom, all the other steps start to fall into place. You're drawn to your dream more than you're being pushed. And so all of a sudden it just flips your life upside down. It's like, oh wow, yes. I am dreaming in 4K. Yes, I do see life in color. Yes, it's not so drab. Yes, I am just the smells are different, the sights are different, the hearing and sounds are different, the touch is different. And then it just becomes magical and you become on fire and you're just like, whoa, okay, I can do these things. But I want to end with this. Vince Lombardi says that man cannot dream himself into character. He must hammer and forge one for himself. And there's some doing in all this process. There's some work that needs to be done, but we can work smarter, not harder. And so anyway, I could have a conversation and just share so much. You pull things out of me that I never share with other people. You have this gift, Ty, of being able to listen and seeing people for who they are and just validating them and loving upon them and just making them feel like they're $1 million. And so thank you for allowing me to shine, to sit on your shoulder, because it's easy to look good on the shoulders of giants.
Wow. I am speechless, and that does not happen. So we will end there. Jeff, thank you so much. I really appreciate you. And I'm going to do my heart. Yay. Thanks, everybody. If you're seeing this, you're my friend. Thank you for being here. I really appreciate that you took time out of your day to spend with little old me. I would love to hear from you. I actually don't. This part is uncomfortable for me. Just talking like this is uncomfortable for me. Somehow more so than this. But I've practiced that. I have the TikTok and I do the things. And this is harder. So please talk to me. Find me on social. Tell me what you thought. Tell me what you think. Tell me what questions you have or what guests you want to see. I want this to feel like you're part of this because you are. You mean something to me and I'm so grateful. So if you would be so kind as to go and give me a review and some stars and just let me know what you're thinking. I would really appreciate it. And I'd love to see you back here anytime to help you remember who you are while you build who you're meant to be. Quick, before you forget.